Hello everyone, we will welcome you to this week's webinar, Old School versus New School Teaching. Now as a player, you'll understand some of the things we're talking about. As a teacher, hopefully you will understand everything we're talking about. But we want to thank our sponsors, Medicus Golf and Kick-X Golf, and Tiffany Green's Golf Club, which is our home base here in Kansas City. So Brenndan Cooper and I are going to get started on this. And there's a lot of talk out today about old school teachers versus new school teachers. And one of the things they talk about are the Butch Harmons of the world, who use very little technology and have tremendous success with their players, versus some of the newer age coaches who use a ton of technology and are not quite having the same success with their players. So, we've kind of put a little thing together for you. We're going to talk about this, and then if you have any questions, just type them in the sidebar there, and we will get to those as we finish up. So, I'm going to talk. I'm going to go down old school. Brenndan's going to tell you the new school piece of it, okay? Since I'm like, maybe 5 years older. Medicare in 2 weeks, baby. Can't wait. So old school teachers, they use their eyes and they use their experience when they're working with players. New school guys,
we like to rely a lot on technology.
Right. So,
whether it's flight scope or ball flight or more pressure mat, something with some numbers behind it.
Right. So getting some numbers.
Yeah.
Us old school guys, again, we use our eyes, and then the advent of video cameras. So we use those a lot. And again, like you said, the new school teachers seem to be more number oriented.
Yeah. Yeah.
And numbers are great. I mean, technology is great. Don't get us wrong. We're just kind of showing you what the differences are. Old school guys also use training aids. Everybody thinks training aids haven't been around that long, but if you look at Ernest Jones when he tied the penknife onto a handkerchief and swung that, that was a training aid to get people to feel something like that. And today, the new guys, right?
Yeah, new guys are doing more. They'll use some camera, but they're doing a lot more training-based things. So it's more, a lot more weights and a lot more training and that sort of type of thing.
So training like other sports.
Yes, exactly.
Whereas in the past, the only training for golf was basically those elbow push-ups, getting that drink to your mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
In the old days, we learned from mentors. You'd watch somebody teach, you'd watch what the best players did, and then you try to get people to emulate those things, which wasn't always the best way to teach the golf swing, but that's what they used back then. Yeah. And the teachers learned that they got better at their craft through experience.
Yeah.
And by watching the best players at the club. I mean, Ben Hogan said when he learned to play golf, he learned to play by caddying for the best player at his club.
Yeah.
They didn't really have a ton of instruction, but they did have instruction back then. Hogan were talking to Jimmy DeMeritt, Henry Picard, and some of those people. So they all still had kind of their teachers back then. People that they would talk to and get feedback from. So and the new school guys,
they want to use the internet quite a bit.
Right.
The internet is a great tool. And social media, is fantastic, but we definitely get a lot more info off the internet. Now, sometimes that can be good information. Sometimes that can be terrible information. So, you just got to be smart with what it is you're looking for or what you're listening to.
You mean if it's not on the internet, if it's on the internet, it's not true?
Sometimes.
In fact, we're being brought to you by the internet. So, yes, we do love technology. Okay, we're just talking about some of the differences. And back in the older days, and when I first started, we taught golf more as out on the golf course. We'd give them an assignment: get the ball from here to that hole in as few strokes as possible. Now, obviously, we did work on their swings and how they were swinging the club and things like that. But we basically taught them how to play golf on the golf course versus today.
Yeah, today it's more or less you're learning it on the practice facility, on the driving range, on the chipping green, on the putting green.
Right.
And so there's definitely a big difference from old style, new style, and that kind of element.
Right. Well, and we have an indoor training center with all the latest gadgets.
Yeah.
So we use that to our advantage because you know, even, you know, we're not saying I'm not a numbers guy. I want to see the numbers, but I only use those numbers to get a baseline for the player.
Yeah.
And when you're hitting it good, this is what it was. When you're not hitting it good, it's not at that number. So do we chart every single shot? No, because a player can get caught up too much in making their numbers look good, and get away from moving the golf club properly.
You know, it's like you and I were talking earlier. You know, there's a lot of great things to take from both columns.
Right.
You know, I think that's our biggest point today is trying to get people to understand there's a lot of great things you can take from the old and the new.
Right.
You know, there needs to be a balance there.
There needs to be a balance, and from the teaching standpoint, we need to know as much as we can, and we need to know as much detail as we can. But the player only needs as much detail that's relative to them.
Right.
They don't need every single piece of information and that vast storehouse of useless information. They just need enough to get them to play with.
Exactly.
Right? And then, you know, today, in the old days, we focused more on the flight of the ball. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's without radar or anything else. We just watch the ball fly.
Yep.
Right? Whereas today, we focus more on
it's all numbers.
The numbers.
Yeah. You know,
right?
you got to try to make the numbers look good.
Yeah. So, you know, those are all good points. And again, you do want to keep that data. You want to get those things measured. But let's go back a few years. Let's say, for instance, when Zach Johnson was playing on, when he first got on the Nationwide Tour. Okay, now he was still hitting a big draw in those days. Okay, it's been said that his path is 6.5 degrees in to out, and all these features are saying that's too much. Okay, well, the guy's won a Masters. He's won numerous tournaments, and do you think that his path was probably still 6.5 degrees before they even started measuring it? So once they started measuring, does that mean I changed my path?
Right.
No, I mean whatever your flight is if you're at that championship caliber level. So your path and your flight and your numbers are not going to change from when you were playing the mini tours without radar to playing on the PGA Tour as a major winner today with radar. The numbers are the same. The only difference is now you can quantify them.
Exactly. Yeah. And you know, take it even a step farther. If you look at a player like Trevino, you know, when Trevino was first learning to play, I mean, everything he hit was a push out to the right. So obviously back then he didn't have numbers to show his path or his face or anything like that. So what does he do? He just starts aiming left, and he starts hitting it straight. So you know, there's lots of ways you can do it. It's just more times than not you got to figure out what's best for you as the player.
Right. I mean, in Trevino's case, I mean, you know, when you're hitting out that much through trial and error, he just figured out, well, I'll just open 30 degrees.
Yeah.
Now I make my swing and just push it down line.
Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head there. There's a lot more trial and error of things back then versus today. And that's the thing, you know, one of the good things with the technology is that we are able to eliminate the trial and error portion of it.
Right.
You know, sometimes that can be a good thing. You know, sometimes maybe not because maybe the player doesn't really understand their swing as much. But again, we're able to kind of get to the root cause of certain things and a little bit quicker maybe.
Right. I mean, and if you're a player that has a path that is too much outward or too much inward, I mean, maybe you want to think about trying to hit the ball dead straight. Just pick the target, try to hit the ball dead straight, which should narrow those numbers. Now, the chances of actually hitting every shot dead straight are pretty slim because nobody on tour does it. They all curve it to some degree, but
wait, they don't hit dead straight?
No, they don't hit it dead straight.
Oh, okay.
So if you are one of those people that have a path issue, you know, work on trying to just get the ball started and flying straight. If you have to modify your setup alignments, then do that.
Yeah.
You know, because at the end of the day, we have to get the ball from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Right. And all the numbers in the world, you know, if you're swinging 8 degrees in to out, and we want to get you to 2 degrees in to out, all right, there's a lot of ways to do that without telling you what these numbers are. We can just say that ball's starting too far to the right.
Yeah.
So we need to start this ball closer to the line. Okay. We don't need to say, hey, we need to bring this down from 8 to 2.
Yeah. And that's the thing, you know, there's a lot of times where, you know, and I know it's happened to you, we'll get a student, you know, we'll capture some data with the ball flight, and you know, everybody says, well, should my path be 0?
Right.
Well, again, it depends. What are you wanting the ball to do? What kind of shot shape are you looking for? So, you know, from a number standpoint, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just going to match the player.
Yeah, I mean, so Kenny Perry and Zach Johnson, if you told them to get their path to zero and not change anything else, they'd be off the golf course. They'd be hooking it clear off the golf course.
Yeah.
There is a significantly older player that's on the webinar, I think, up in Virginia Beach. And, you know, he was always what we referred to in the old days as a rock and blocker. You know, he would tilt everything this way, and then he would tilt everything back this way. But you know what? That worked for him. He played really, really good golf and tournament level golf doing that. So now his numbers would have looked horrible. You know, if you look at all everything his body was doing, his 3D numbers, they'd have looked horrible. So if you'd have fixed him to where they were great, he might not have been able to hit the ball.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And again, it's you know, we say it over and over again. You know, clubs are designed one specific way. You know, there's no right or wrong way per se how to hit a golf ball. You know, now there are certain keys that, you know, we strive to achieve that really is going to help you do that.
Right.
But, you know, I mean, do what's best for the player.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to get the player to hit the ball the straightest, you know. So
whether you're a player or a teacher,
yeah.
You know, so talking to some teachers out there.
I see we have some questions. So let me walk up here and see if some of these questions are. All right, so we have a question from Michael Wheeler. Ouch. Oh, no, that's my name, Chuck. Has anything particular with philosophy, drills, etc. changed? What or how you teach since being able to use technology? So has anything in particular changed, psychology or drills? You know what? I use the same drills now that I used before I ever had any technology because they work. If you find drills that work, they're going to work regardless of whether you have technology or not. I've always been under the assumption that every player has their own body mechanics and built-in type swing, and our job is to put the pieces together to make that work better for them. Not to eliminate what their tendencies are, but to work on the strengths around those tendencies. Yeah. So, I mean, how do you feel about it?
No, I mean, you know, you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, we've got a certain process that we go through our players, you know, and then that's, you know, going to tell us what they can and cannot do.
Right.
And at the end of the day, us as teachers, that's what we're trying to do, regardless of what the swing looks like. I mean, yes, we can use the numbers,
right,
and we're using that to verify what it is we're trying to work on.
Right.
But what their body does, that's going to make their swing look a particular way.
Right, and there are certain coaches, teachers, that we see on our social media forums all the time, and they will post pictures of their students. And if you take the head off all those students, every single one of them look exactly the same. I've never had two golfers that swim the club the same way, but they all look the same. So they're all going to look different. You may have somebody that takes the club back at this angle, and that fits their body motion. Now, from here, their shoulder would have to be down more to do that. You may have some people that have to take it up this way. And again, if that's their body motion, that's what they work with.
Yeah.
So, and we did a webinar earlier in the summer. It was actually called Your Body, Your Swing, and there was 2 parts to it. And it kind of shows you how to do some measurements. And if your body does certain things, that's telling you what it wants to do.
Yeah.
Well, don't fight that. Just put the pieces that work with it together.
Yes, exactly.
So hopefully I answered that for you, Michael. I don't know. If not, you can send me a message, and I'll try to be a little clearer. All right, the next one is from Rex. Drills to get the divot in front of the ball and to stop flipping. Well, there's any number of drills, right? So we'll just lay this down. We'll have Brenndan address it. Let's say this is the golf ball. So you can put a line on the ground. I just laid this on the ground. And as he goes up, you want to hit on that side of it. Now, pay attention to what he has to do in order to do that. So he goes to the top of the swing. Okay. So if he goes to the top of the swing, the first thing that has to happen is he starts moving his pressure left.
Yep.
Now the hands are starting to move left, but he hasn't moved the club head. He hasn't done that. from there, as he continues, this is all going to work upwards and around now, which is going to bring the hands forward in front of that line. So that's one drill. Another drill, you can actually hit balls out in the range with this. So go ahead and just step to that ball if you will, Brenndan. We'll put a ball back here, even with this foot, have them start the club here, swing back, as you come down, miss this ball and hit this ball. Okay, that one's pretty easy to do. Now, if you really want to get good at this, take your very favorite $400 driver and set it right there with the ball, swing down, and don't hit that driver.
A little bit more pressure there.
A little more pressure, okay? So that's a couple of ways to do it, but ultimately, you have to have what we call key two. The pressure has to be moving forward, the weight moving forward here. And as you're doing that, your body and arms are coming with it. And as your shoulder, your target shoulder starts moving upward and inward, that's going to bring the hands more forward as well. When you do that correctly, you'll notice that your body has what we call second axis tilt, has a degree of tilt. If I was to move my whole body left, yeah, I could hit down on it now, but it would be my angle of attack or my divot depth would be about this deep, 3 or 4 inches deep.
And notice when you did that, Chuck, it's not this tilt here. It's
moving the hip.
It's moving the hip, getting the pressure left.
Right.
That's giving us this tilt here.
Right. All right, let's see what else we've got here. So we have, okay, this is from Air. On the backswing, lift the heel up or not. Good for seniors or not. Okay, so I would say it's good for seniors. I mean, Bubba Watson does it. He's certainly not a senior. You have to do it properly. I mean, you wouldn't want to look like this, right? So as you go up, it's okay to let that heel come up and let your knee work inward a little bit. So when you replant it, you've got that motion already going, so you can come back down.
Yep.
So that's the old Wild Bill Melhorn drill again. A drill we've talked about many times. So start the club here. Pick this foot up, put it down, swing the club. This foot's now up. Put it down, swing the club. So it's step, 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 step. And that'll get you the feeling of moving back and forth.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
All right, let's see what else we have here. All right, we got Mike, we got Rex, we've got Air. Who else do we have here? Let me scroll down a little bit. Okay, I think that's it for the questions. That's all I see anyway. So, a good way to think about things, whether it's old school or new school. Ultimately, you know, your job as a player is to get the ball to the hole with fewest amount of strokes. Our job as an instructor is to do it in the simplest form we can to help you understand it.
Yep.
You know, I had a salesman tell me one time, this guy's a great salesman. He says, in order to be successful in sales, you got to be able to talk stocks and bonds or pigs and chokes. So what that meant was, you need to be able to talk to them at their level.
Yep.
So if you've got somebody that's a PhD in biomechanics, you may want to talk to them differently than Mr. and Mrs. Haverkamp.
Yeah.
Right? So if we're talking to Dr. Kwong or Sasha McKenzie, well, we're going to talk to them differently than if we're talking to anybody else.
Yeah.
You know, just a normal person who comes in on our lesson tape.
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of give our juniors a combination because we're prepping them so if they get older, they'll understand a little bit more. We're giving them the easy things. We're also telling them what that means in a little more in-depth terms.
Right. So that way they can definitely understand ball flight a little bit more when they're on their own under the belt
Right.
as far as competition goes.
Right. Right. Okay, well, that's going to be it for us this week. Next week's webinar is entitled?
Don't make me say it.
Come on, say it.
How to play with your, what did we say the title was?
I forget.
I forget too. But
Well,
it'll be a surprise.
But it has something to do with noodle, I think.
Ah, it was a noodle.
It was a noodle.
Yeah, just look for the email blast and you'll get it.
So we'll see you guys. Thanks.